Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to a live Manchester United news, transfer news, takeover news, general update show. Because wow, we've got lots and lots of news to get into. I will share my screen. I will get through all the news, all the reports that have come out in just a second. But we've got exits of potentially Bayendier already being agreed, among others. Eric Ramsey leaving. Greenwood set to leave. Ineos apparently made a decision as well. Reports coming out. Dan Ashworth has basically said, I'm going to United like I want Man United to Newcastle. That should be done, but what's the situation with Dan Ashworth and compensation and all of this going on at Manchester United? I mean, there's so much going on. There's so much that I want to get into, and I also wanted to go live today because I always like to go live the morning or night or on the same day as a match and talk about the match, because I do want to talk about the Luton game with you guys and have some conversations about Rashford, Garnacho, Maino. I saw a lot of people saying that Rashford was crap yesterday. I don't think Rashford was bad. I don't think he was amazing, but I don't think he was bad. I think he was a 7 out of 10. Don't think he really did too much wrong. I think it's just quite easy for people to just put stick on Rashford. I thought Casemiro had a bad game. I thought Bruno had a bad game. I thought Maguire had a bad game. I thought Garnacho just looked absolutely knackered, but I don't actually think Rashford had a bad game yesterday. Don't think he was amazing. I wouldn't have given him like an 8 or 9 out of 10, but he was a 6 and 7. He was a 6s and 7s, and considering how poor Rashford started the season, I would be taking 6s and 7s and general improvement. But I do want to get into the news. I do want to get into some stories as well. Newcastle asking 20 million for Dan Ashworth. We'll get into the latest on that as well. To not handling Ashworth well at all might put other execs off working with them. And I do think that Newcastle, this 20 million that they're holding out for, I think they'll have to settle for about 10. I think it will get settled for about 10, because if Newcastle want to get other executives in who are ambitious and might want to go somewhere after Newcastle, they're going to be put off by that. Newcastle are also in an FFP situation, so they don't really want to be paying Dan Ashworth's wages the next 2 years for him not to work. There's a multitude of things obviously going on as well. Guys, do hit the like button, do subscribe if you're new as well. Disappointed we didn't score 5 or 6. It's all about the points. 3 of our next 4 games we're at home should win them. Yeah, if we can win all our next games bar the City game, I don't expect us to go win at the Etihad. That would be massive. The crazy thing is we almost got dominated by Luton for 70% of that game, yet we could have beat Luton about 6-2. 6-2 could have generally been the scoreline, even though we got dominated for so much of that game, which does make me worried about, if we're going to go to the Etihad and they're going to have that quality that Luton don't have in the final third. It's not going to be nice. It's not going to be nice at all as well. But yeah, 20 million for Ashworth is absolutely ridiculous. We're going to get into that. But let's just talk about a few general stories. These are just general stories, and we're going to dive into the news. So, general stories I thought was just add a nice touch to the video. Sir Dave Brailsford congratulated all Manchester United players and staff as they made their way to the bus. He also greeted Ross Barkley because they know each other at Nice. And I just wanted to say this, and it's a bit relevant, but I really like that Brailsford is very, very involved. We've not seen the Glazers come watch United. We've not seen the Glazers show any interest in United. Maybe twice in their 18 years they've really showed up. Brailsford's there at nearly every United game, speaking to the players. Ratcliffe's met the players. It's nice to see that those at the top, those who's going to be working with the owners, are really involved in this club and really involved in Manchester United. It makes me feel like they care. It makes me feel like they give a damn about how we're going to do on the pitch, because they're there watching. I guarantee you the Glazers probably haven't watched, I guarantee the Glazers haven't put their TV on and watched one Man United game this season. I guarantee that. It's nice that I feel like Brailsford is really showing an interest in Manchester United as well. And Matthias Tel would be an awesome signing to boost United. I absolutely agree. We can talk about that later on. I don't know if it's going to happen. I think it's agent talk, but that'd be amazing. No Leacher, again, Shaw came off whenever we lose our first 11, we dip. Yeah, and I have to say, Luton took points off Liverpool. Arsenal had to get a last-minute winner there. Man City struggled at Luton. A lot of big teams have struggled at Luton's ground. To not have Martinez, to miss out on Shaw. The fact that we could have scored 5 or 6 goals if we were more clinical, I'm honestly not going to complain too much about. Even though the performance, there was the same problems with the rest, defence structure, it's so easy to play through us. I'm honestly not going to complain too much. I saw something, and I'm trying to see if I can find it. I want to show you this, because I want to show you this here, because this is absolutely mad. And this is one of the reasons I'm not going to complain too much, is because we could have scored 5 or 6 goals. See this here? We didn't score from this. There's 3 opportunities I'm going to show you that we didn't score from this. We didn't score from this opportunity when Delo could have literally just laid it into Garnacho there. We didn't score from this opportunity with Bruno Fernandes, where it almost feels like Bruno can just hit it in the goal. And we didn't score from that opportunity with Garnacho. it's actually mad that we didn't score that opportunity, we didn't score that opportunity, and we didn't score that opportunity. It's like we should have scored 5 goals. Like, didn't score any of these. I mean, even though we got dominated at times, we generally could have scored 5 goals. I sat there and thought, wow, we really could have scored 5 goals, which is crazy. But Luton are tough and they're much better in their position. The table suggests, and Alex is spot on. Luton are a much better team. 4-4 with Newcastle. Newcastle will tune up against Luton, ended up drawing 4-4. They're not a team you can write out. They're a team that can score goals. Luckily, they're best sort of attacker. Luckily for us, obviously, I hope he's not actually injured. Went out of an injury in the warm-up, which gave us a bit of an advantage. But Ross Barkley hit the bar right at the end. It very, very easily could have been 2-2. Def squandered a few clear-cut chances. Yeah, I mean, definitely did, as we can see as well. Daily Express that Newcastle blocked Dan Ashworth's computer. Well, that's what we're going to get into. We are going to get into those stories. In terms of sort of other news that isn't just about Dan Ashworth, this Dan Ashworth that. United are looking for a head of recruitment that's going to be close to Dan Ashworth. Sam Jules obviously been a name that's been spoken about a lot. Also, Felix Wilcox could, not Felix, Jason Wilcox. Why do I keep saying Felix, man? Could be in a promoted role working with Dan Ashworth. And it was said the appointment of Dan Ashworth is in line with plans from the CEO, Omar Barada. So apparently Omar Barada is very much approved, saying, look, you know what, if Man United want, they can come out, they can get Dan Ashworth. Omar Barada has approved of that. And Omar Barada is ready to get to business as well. Someone said preying on Tottenham's downfall. I'm not really that bothered about Tottenham because I think 5th place can get us into the Champions League next season. Part of me just wants Arsenal, Liverpool and City to start losing games and Tottenham to win all their games so Tottenham win the league. And I have this hope that Tottenham will win the league so it's not the other teams, but that's not going to happen now. But the fact that we only are 3 points behind Tottenham, we are in a really good position actually. I want to show you this quickly. Why am I lagging? I do want to get into the news because I've got so much to get into and I don't want to waffle too much, but I want to show you this here to show you that actually all things United aren't as bad as maybe first may have seemed. As you can see here, looking at the tables and stuff, Manchester United 44 points. We're actually only 9 points behind Manchester City, which isn't awful. Like, imagine if we went to the Etihad and beat them, we could be like 6 points behind Man City. Considering the injuries we've had, considering how bad we've been, it wouldn't be that bad. But as you can see, 4 wins in a row in the Premier League and dropped silly points there as well against Tottenham. But you know what? We are in a very, very good position, weirdly, because we've got a good 6 points here on Brighton now. Goal difference is crazy. Look at the rest of the league's goal difference compared to us. It kind of shows that we're outperforming. The way we're playing isn't sustainable. We have been outperforming, and that is shown by our +1 goal difference. But in all honesty, I feel like 3 points behind Spurs. I'm going to say we're 4 points behind Spurs just because of the pure goal difference there. 4 points behind Spurs, 5 points, 6 points behind Villa there. I think generally 13 games to go, we could maybe make a Champions League push. I don't know if we will get there, but we can make a late push. We did it before that season. We signed Bruno Fernandes in January and we're like 15 points off Leicester and ended up finishing 3rd. We went on a run. I don't think we're going to go on a run because I feel like the performances haven't always warranted the result. It's like, oh, we got the result, but the performance wasn't convincing. Martinez is out for most of the season. Shaw's going to be out again, and apparently Shaw didn't look good. But I think when you look at the league, things aren't as dramatic and as bad as I think sometimes they're made up to be as well. Big up everybody in the chat. Big up everybody getting involved as well. Any potential former City execs, if you get World Cups on top of Barada, is crazy. Yeah, a lot of people ready to leave City. I think maybe people know that City could be a sinking ship with these charges and ready to leave. Goal difference is shocking. You're absolutely right. Etihad going to be 0-0 part of the bus. You know what? I took 0-0 at Anfield. I'll take 0-0 at the Etihad. Considering we shipped 6 at the Etihad last year, we shipped 7 at Anfield last year. I'll be taking 0-0 boring ass games. Do you know what? If Man United played how they did against Liverpool, against Man City, I wouldn't be bothered. It's when Man United play that boring crap against Burnley, I'm like, well, this is Burnley. But honestly, for me, I'd do anything for 0-0 at the Etihad at this rate, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I like to see goals. Ashworth is quality, but no way giving a mega-rich club in trouble with FFP 20 million for an executive. Exactly. That's the thing with Ashworth. It's more about you can't give Newcastle that. That is crazy. But let's dive into news. Let's dive into the 3 potential exits because we are like 10 minutes into the show and I haven't even got into like half the stuff with their title and stuff. But in terms of 3 potential exits, there are reports coming out that Altay Bayindir has agreed to join Galatasaray in the summer. Again, coming out from a very rogue source, So I would take it with a pinch of salt for now. There are rumours and reports that Bayindir is fed up with this lack of minutes and wants to leave this and that, and that he's already agreed to join Galatasaray. No one of real credibility is saying that. No good source of information is saying that. So do take that with a pinch of salt. One to keep an eye on, definitely, because I think Bayindir may be expected to play a bit more, even though he knew he was going to be second goalkeeper. It's definitely one to keep an eye on, definitely one to watch out for, but I don't think there is any agreement. If Romano says, or if some journalist that we know says that there's an agreement, then we start looking at it, but I'm not sure. But we do know there is an agreement or potential agreement coming for Eric Ramsey. So Romano gave an exclusive today to say that MLS Minnesota side have approached Manchester United staff coach Eric Ramsey to be their new manager, and talks are ongoing and progressing well. He's their top target, and that Manchester United assistant coach Eric Ramsey is set to be appointed as the new manager of MLS side Minnesota United. So that was what was said on Eric Ramsey. And I think he's going to leave Manchester United. And I saw a lot of people celebrating this. Yeah, Eric Ramsey's gone. Finally, we're no longer going to be crap at set pieces. And I hate to break it to you guys, but Eric Ramsey's the set piece coach. But apparently he hasn't been the set piece coach this season. Ten Hag wanted to take over set pieces. We brought Eric Ramsey in as a set piece coach. Still remained awful at set pieces, but apparently Eric Ramsey hasn't even been coaching set pieces at United the last 18 months. He's just a normal coach now. No one really knows what he does. So it's people blame Eric Ramsey a lot for how crap we are on set pieces. And I think, to be honest, I don't know what he brings now. He needs to go. But apparently Eric Ramsey hasn't actually been coaching set pieces at Manchester United. Ten Hag's taken over. So, I mean, it's probably one where he probably should go. Maybe he's been really good. Maybe he's been brilliant behind the scenes. I don't know. But I just think, yeah, we might as well let him go. Ineos aren't going to get in his way. Bosh, get him out as well. Because no one really knows what his role is, to be honest, as well. Have it at Minnesota, not bothered if Ramsey leaves. Either am I, I'm not that bothered at all. I think, Carrick's left and McKenna's left, and we know that they're good coaches. But I'm sure Ineos will bring people in, and I think, Carrick and McKenna were a bigger loss than, of course, Eric Ramsey, in my opinion. Hopefully Dan Ashworth will go for Nico Williams or Kubo. Yeah, Nico Williams I think is more suited to United than Kubo, especially if Ten Hag wants to play more transition file football as well. So much for Barcelona wanting Greenwood. Well, I think this source is chatting crap, but I want to get into it. So it said Mason Greenwood will not return to Manchester United this summer, and they want around 40 million for him. Barcelona and Atletico are interested. Not come out from the best source of information, but reports are coming out to say that Ineos have made the decision that Greenwood will not return. Now, I've not heard anything reliable about Barcelona being in for Greenwood, but I've heard things from reliable people about Atletico Madrid being in for Greenwood. I don't know about the Barcelona Greenwood news, but I do know that Atletico Madrid have shown interest in Mason Greenwood, because that's been confirmed by reliable sources. Again, the information I got on Mason Greenwood and Ineos and what Ineos were going to do with Greenwood was very much that Ineos will make a decision towards the end of the season. I don't know if a decision's been made. I think it's more likely that Ineos will probably say, you know what, we'll sell Greenwood than keep, because I don't think they want to go through all the drama and potential backlash of him coming back. But part of me thinks that Ineos won't make the decision and won't actually make an actual decision on what they're going to do with Greenwood to the end of the season. So I think reports coming out saying that Ineos has decided he's going to stay, or reports coming out saying that Ineos decided he's going to leave, should be taken with a pinch of salt, because I think Ineos won't make a decision to the end of the season. I also think what happens with Anthony, Pellistri and Sancho could also factor that, because I think deep down Ten Hag would like Greenwood back. I think deep down Ineos would probably like Greenwood to come back because it solves them a problem, but I also think that they're wary about how certain fans would react. So I think there's probably a high chance he doesn't come back and comes back, but I don't think any decision's been made. But I do know Atletico Madrid are in from him. However, it's not the best or most reliable source coming out with that information as well. Big money from that's good. I think the also thing that people forget with Greenwood is that because he's an academy player, that's pure FFP profit. I wouldn't be surprised if Ineos want to get rid of Mejbri, Greenwood and McTominay, because they're 3 academy players, but it's just going to be pure profit in terms of FFP. Not so much Mejbri, but Greenwood and McTominay could bring in big money in terms of FFP. In terms of transfer news, in terms of Ineos's plans to press ahead with transfers, Fabrizio Romano did confirm on his YouTube channel that directors have decided to sign a striker at Manchester United. And obviously we were recently linked with Matthias Tell, and I was thinking this and I wrote this down. So let's say Anthony Greenwood, Sancho and Martial all leave United. Surely Man United will then go out potentially for another winger, depending on Pellistri. I think we'll sign a striker, we'll sign a winger. But if Greenwood, Sancho, Martial, and then maybe Pellistri and Ahmad, because at this rate Ahmad might go. Maybe United will sign 2 wingers. I think United might go for someone like Matthias Tell, because he can play left wing and he can play striker. I wouldn't be surprised if United went for Elise and Matthias Tell, because one can play right wing and left wing, and technically Elise can play centre forward, and the other can play left wing and striker. I wouldn't be surprised if United went for a striker that can also play on the wing. I think realistically, I don't know if Anthony and Sancho will go, because it's easier said than done. Anthony and Sancho are going to be difficult to sell on with their poor form and their high wages. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ineos want a striker that can play wing and get a winger in, because they'll almost see that's bringing in 2 wingers, because I think a lot of players will probably leave. I think the plan is to get rid of a lot of players. I think Ineos want to remove a lot of players. The plan is to get them out. The question mark is, will Man United get them out? Because we always plan to get a lot of players out, and then we actually, when it comes to it, we seem to struggle with that side of selling as well. Tell would be amazing bit of stay at Bayern. I agree. I think he wants to stay at Bayern. I think it was a brief thing linking him to United due to his lack of minutes. I think Tuchel will be sacked, a new manager will come in, and Tell will have a big role. But I would absolutely love him at Manchester United as well. We win, and because it wasn't beautiful, everyone is negative. You know what? I agree with AB here. At the end of the day, the football we played yesterday wasn't beautiful. There's problems with the rest defence, there's problems with the structure, but Man United have had a massive injury crisis all season. Man United are sort of in a scenario where we know the biggest issue has been the Glazers, the board, the poor recruitment. Man United are in a scenario where we've won 5 games in a row. We've won 2 games away from home in a row against Villa and Luton. Villa Park and Kenworth Road, they've taken points off Liverpool, City, Arsenal. Villa beat City and Arsenal at home. Luton drew to Liverpool at home. We've gone to both those stadiums. We picked up 6 points without Martinez, with Shaw having to come off within like 20 minutes of that match. He was so crucial in build-up, and the way we play in their massive misses, with very few options on the bench, with the kids carrying us yet again. We've gone and won 5 games in a row. Højlund has now got 9 goal contributions in his last 7 games. We're now 3 points off Spurs, 3 points off top 4. We could have scored 5 goals. Yes, Luton outperformed us. Yes, there are some concerns, but we could have actually beat Luton 5-1, and we've won 2 games in a row. So I feel like there is a lot of negativity. I think you're spot on. I saw people going in and Rashford saying Rashford was crap yesterday. I thought Rashford had a decent game. I saw a lot of negativity, a lot of this and that going about, and I just thought, you know what? There are problems. There are things that Ten Hag needs to fix. There's also frustrations with, I think, the players are making silly decisions. We're 2-0 up, and the players are bombing it long and making bad decisions, which isn't on Ten Hag. But at the end of the day, I trust that Ineos are going to see this. I trust that Ineos, Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, whoever it is going to see this and going to see the issues at United and hopefully address them in the summer. And I think that for how we've been this season, how bad we've been, I think let's just enjoy the wins and be positive while we can. I think there's every reason to criticise, there's every reason to be concerned, but there's lots of negativity still. And I don't think people need to be as negative as they are. I think people can be negative and say, look, like Luton did cut through our midfield, like Ten Hag needs to address this. But I feel like some people are like, yeah, we have no depth, and the first 11 can do with some upgrades as well. Just take the points where we can. Exactly. I'm at the point right now where the season's kind of over, but if we're getting the points, even if the performances aren't good, and we're going to scrap our way into top 4, so be it as well. Top 5 gets you Champions League, and Spurs have to play Villa at Villa Park as well, which again, a lot of people forget about that as well. And if United don't get that 3rd goal, we struggle, especially if we can see we did struggle. It wasn't an easy game, but we got the 3 points. Villa Park, Luton Town, 2 difficult games to go to, and we went and got points as well. Fans expecting us to play perfect like City or something with what we have, they should be supporting a different club. To an extent, I wouldn't say they should be supporting a different club. I think fans have every right to have high expectations, high standards, because for the money we spent, the way we're playing is not good enough, and some of that will rely on Ten Hag, a lot of that will rely on recruitment and not having the players available. But we're not Manchester City, we're not Liverpool, we're not Arsenal at the moment. I want to be in that tight race of Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal, but the level's ahead of us. And while I want to be playing like that, and with the money we spent, we should be playing somewhat better than we are. I'm just happy that we're still getting the wins over the lines, that we're still seeing Maino's got a future, Delo's got a future, Højlund's got a future, Martinez has got a future. I'm just happy we're getting the points. It's about grinding out results, because you know what? Yeah, the performances haven't been acceptable. Yes, there's worrying. But Ten Hag just doesn't have the squad. The players, a lot of these players aren't good enough. A lot of these players can't play the way that Ten Hag wants to play in. And hopefully Ineos will come in and hopefully they will fix that as well. That's what I think as well. We have to beat Fulham and Forest in the Cup, and then the City game will be difficult. Yeah, if we can win all our games leading up to Manchester City, that could maybe give us some confidence going into the City game. And I just think with City, if we can get a draw at the Etihad, I'll absolutely take it as well. Even the likes of Bruno, as much as I rate him, he's not had many great matches this term. Yeah, I like Bruno. I'm a big fan of Bruno, but he's just been poor this term. A lot of the bigger players aren't showing up. And I think some of it is that Bruno's just knackered. I think Bruno's exhausted from all the minutes he's had to play. I'm beaten in 2024, and we still have a fully fit team. Yeah, you've got to be positive. We've got over 330 people watching, so do hit that like button. I do want to get onto the latest on Dan Ashworth and all of that news and what's happening. Jamie says the difference in how this club will be run from the 2023 season compared to the start of the 2024 season is night and day. Oh, my brother, Dan Ashworth versus John Murtough, Richard Arnold. Come on, United, yeah. And I think that's why even right now I've not been very negative about United at all. I could sit here and I could criticize the performances and the tactical setup and how much space we leaving behind and how we can't defend against runs dribbling us, but I just think, you know what, this summer should mark the change of a new era at United, where it's not about dividends, where it's not dividends FC, where it is about actually we're going to have people that like football, that know how to run a football club, running this football club and making decisions instead of bankers. They'll know what Ten Hag needs, they'll know what the problems are, they'll be able to identify that. We can relax a bit. I'm almost at the point now where I feel like summer should be a mark of a good change, and I'm just going to be positive between now and the end of the season. I almost wrote the season off and thought, well, it's going to get better next summer. But if we can get points, we can get top four, then that's a bonus as well. Big up everybody in the chat as well. I do want to get into the Ashworth news because I want to get right into the news, and I've been waffling a little bit here. But what is the latest on Dan Ashworth? So Fabrizio Romano came out last night and said this: Dan Ashworth has agreed to join Manchester United. He believes this is the perfect project for present and future, and that Manchester United are working on bringing in Jason Wilcox, and he could work together with Dan Ashworth as co-sporting director, and that Man United are prepared to push again next week in order to bring Dan Ashworth to the club. And Ashworth has already accepted United will now assist in negotiations with Newcastle and agree on compensation. So before Dan Ashworth agreed to join United, and now United are basically going in, approaching Newcastle and trying to agree a compensation. What has David Ornstein said on Dan Ashworth to United? David Ornstein has said that Dan Ashworth asked to leave Newcastle United amid interest from Manchester United, making him the sporting director, and Ashworth informed Newcastle of his decision today. So Ashworth went to Newcastle and said, I want to join United. That's what Ashworth did. He went over to Newcastle and he said to them today, look, I want to join United. It said that now Dan Ashworth has been placed on gardening leave after asking to leave Newcastle, and Newcastle are now demanding 20 million for Ashworth. Now, Ashworth's gardening leave is a year and a half. Newcastle want 20 million, which is a farce. United won't pay that because Newcastle are a direct rival and FFP struggle. Newcastle will probably have to lower that fee. Luke Evans of The Telegraph again said that Dan Ashworth will be prevented from taking up a position as Manchester United's new director of football until 2026 unless Newcastle's huge financial demands of more than 20 million are met. It was said that Manchester United are confident of reaching a compromise with Newcastle to enable Dan Ashworth to start work earlier, and United are hopefully getting Ashworth in for the summer window. I believe that there'll be some agreement around the 10 million mark, because I don't think Newcastle will want to pay Ashworth to not work for 2 years, and I don't think Man United will want to wait 2 years for Ashworth to work. I think Newcastle know that 20 million is a bit of a farce, and that could put off other top execs from joining them if they treat their staff badly, because 20 million is ridiculous as well. We've got to negotiate that to that 10 million or less mark, as Alex said as well. And Newcastle don't have the flexibility financially. Yeah, Newcastle in a bit of a mud at the moment financially. And to be honest, we're not much better off with FFP. And I think both teams are in situations with FFP where it might have to be something like 10 million to get this done as well. That's what I think will happen as well. And Man United are only doing what Newcastle done to Brighton. You could say that, but Brighton accepted 5 million. Brighton were quite reasonable and said 5 million. Newcastle want 20 million. I think 10 million is where it gets settled, to be honest, as well. If Newcastle don't lower the fee, can't wait to 2026. Will lower the fee. I think 20 million is because they know it's United and we have an history of overpaying and we're a direct rival and Newcastle need the money. It's why they're asking for a lot. Locking him out of his computer and the threat of long-term gardening leave. No appreciation for the good job he's done there. Yeah, I think they're just annoyed. I think Newcastle have got all that money. They've got all that Saudi porn. I feel like long-term their project is probably more exciting than United in terms of the money available. And I think maybe Newcastle are a bit upset that he's just willing to jump ship so quickly into their project to go to Manchester United, because Newcastle sort of got in the Champions League. They felt that they were back. And I think Newcastle will be back. I think they'll probably challenge for top four next season. But I think there's a lot of people hurt at Newcastle, because it's not like it's the Newcastle that's 20th and struggling for relegation. It's the Newcastle that's meant to be this Champions League side, that's meant to be this Man City side but yet people are leaving them for United, which is fair enough because Man United is the biggest club in the world. But I think with the Glazers still being United and Newcastle's pull and Newcastle's project, I think there's probably those inside Newcastle that aren't happy because they see United as a direct rival. You know, we won the Carabao Cup as well. There's a bit of a rivalry between Man United and Newcastle. Like, I don't really see Newcastle as a rival. Like, I literally couldn't really care about Newcastle. I like some of their players. I don't mind it when they win. I'm not like, I can't stand Arsenal. I can't stand Liverpool. Never really had an issue with Newcastle, but I feel like maybe on Newcastle's end there is a bit of a rivalry between Newcastle and United. It's a bit weird as well. FFP kicked in the right time. A rich takeover shouldn't be a shortcut to decades of success / revenue building. Yeah, I mean, City have obviously done it the Man City way, but hopefully that will catch them up because everyone knows that City have definitely bent a few rules there as well. But I think Newcastle don't want to be in a situation where they have 115 charges like Manchester City. In terms of what now for Ashworth, this was said by Craig Hope, who's a very good source in terms of Newcastle information, and he said that Dan Ashworth will not continue his role at Newcastle after informing the club of his desire to leave. He remains under contract and on gardening leave. So Ashworth is basically out of Newcastle now. Eddie Howe said something about Ashworth knowing secrets, and I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle just want Ashworth out now so he doesn't get any indications of what their plans could be for the summer. It was said the gardening period is close to 2 years, and it's up to United to negotiate an early release, and Newcastle waiting for an offer. It said that Newcastle United want 15 million for Dan Ashworth, 20 months gardening leave if not paid. All of Ashworth's computer and scouting Ashworth access was blocked today. So there are now reports that it's going to be 15 million. Newcastle demanded between 15 and 20 million. I think something will get sorted for 10 million. I think Newcastle just need any money they can get, and Man United can't afford 20 million because of FFP. Newcastle don't want to be paying his wages for him not to work. And it looks like Newcastle know that Ashworth's going to go because they've just said as soon as Ashworth said I want to leave, they're like, you're right, you're blocked off your computer, you're blocked of everything, you're out, you're done. Like, Ashworth has left Newcastle now. He communicated he want to leave. Newcastle have kicked him out of everything. They're like, adios. And Newcastle wouldn't be doing that unless they knew that, okay, we've got to agree a fee with United. We've got to get the money for him because Newcastle aren't going to want to pay this guy for doing nothing, especially when there's an opportunity to maybe even get 10 million from United, which is going to do so much for them in terms of FFP. 20 million is a crazy ask, but I think 10 million, something could happen there as well. 100% as well. But 2026, 20 months garden league is mad. I think it's actually the end of 2025 as well. It would be hilarious if Newcastle paid Ashworth 1.5 years during his gardening leave just to be spiteful because he wants to go to United. That would be crazy. United can't afford 20 million because of FFP, and I think Newcastle know that deep down. I think they'll realise if they want to get any money, United would wait if worse came to worse. So yeah, that has to be up there with top manager compensation fees too, and has to come off that figure. Yeah, I think when you think about the amount of money that obviously Brighton got when Chelsea brought Graham Potter, Newcastle will be thinking, well, we want money for Dan Ashworth because he's just as important. I think Dan Ashworth is a more important signing than maybe a lot of signings United have made. Maybe he is our best signing, close to Alex Ferguson, Dan Ashworth, in terms of actually we're fine. All the money we've spent, all the money we've wasted, all the money we're going to save by having someone with a bit of brains instead of Murta and Dan Ashworth coming in and running the club. That, to be honest, Dan Ashworth could be worth the 20 million if United did pay him, but I don't think United actually have 20 million to spend because of FFP as well. 100%. People saying Newcastle kicking them off the laptop already is pretty crazy as well. Did you see Jose on Rio's 5? I saw bits of it, but I saw clips of it, but I haven't actually watched the full interview. So yeah, that is Ashworth is out of Newcastle. I think Dan Ashworth is basically done. I think the fact that he's been kicked out his computer, Newcastle have kicked him out of the club. He said he wants to join Manchester United. He's left Newcastle. Dan Ashworth has left Newcastle and he's agreed to join Manchester United. It's just a matter of when he will join. Will he join Manchester United relatively soon? Will there be a fee agreed, or is this going to drag on? From what I've heard, Newcastle don't want this to drag on. Newcastle want a bit of money for it. So Newcastle will probably lower the price because of their FFP. United can't pay that much money because of FFP. Ineos look like they just want to get stuff done and boom. Ineos don't look like they want to waste time. Ineos look like they want to just get stuff done. They want to get to work. So I think Ineos will agree a fee. I think a fee will be agreed. There'll be a bit of negotiating. We've got a new negotiating side. It's not going to be Arnold and Murta negotiating what United's going to do. We've actually got a new negotiation team coming in. And yeah, I think that it will eventually be negotiated down. And I think Ashworth will end up at United. To be honest, in the next couple of weeks, I think it will be done quite quickly because United will want to get on and identify their transfer target and stuff as well. I will talk about other stuff. I will talk about the match as well. But once if Hoyland, Garnacho and Eric Ten Hag and Maino, Eric Ten Hag must get credit for what they're performing. Yeah, you make a good point. Sorry, I misread that. We're going back to the match yesterday. A lot of people saying, "Oh, Eric Ten Hag doesn't improve players. Oh, Eric Ten Hag doesn't play the youth." Well, look at Garnacho, look at Hoyland, look at Maino, look how they've improved. Look how Delo's improved. I think some players haven't improved under Eric Ten Hag, and other players have, and that's just how it is. I think there's flaws of Eric Ten Hag's game. There's stubbornness, there's tactical flaws, but I feel like some people are so anti Ten Hag that they start lying to themselves about Ten Hag and saying, "Oh no, getting worse under Ten Hag. He's not improving players. He's not playing Ahmad. He's not playing the youth." Hoyland, Garnacho, and Maino are younger than Ahmad. People are complaining he's not playing Ahmad, he's not playing the youth. He's playing 3 players younger than Ahmad on the pitch. Forson's younger than Ahmad, he came on. I think Ahmad should be playing over Anthony. I'd have liked to have seen Meshby get some minutes over McTominay, and I would have liked to see Alvaro Fernandez stay, but he can't play all the youngsters. The fact that he's playing Kobe, he brought through Garnacho, and Garnacho's now a regular starter last season from the academy, and he's brought through Kobe Maino this season. He's a regular start from the academy. The fact that Ten Hag is bringing in one player from the academy and making them a regular starter at Man United each year is actually very, very good, because you can't say the same about a lot of clubs. Arsenal had Saka, but no one else in their squad really since. And Nketiah comes in here and there. Arsenal got one, and how long has Arteta been there? Quite a few years. You could argue Martinelli to an extent, but they did buy him at 18. Manchester City have Foden, he didn't even start. Chelsea just sold all their academy players and they've gone out on multiple loans, and it's not, Ten Hag's actually brought them straight from the academy to the team. It's not like they're experienced, they've gone on loans. He's brought in 18, 19-year-olds. Liverpool have got one in Conor Bradley coming up, and Klopp did bring through Trent and Curtis Jones, so you've got to give Klopp credit there. But not many big clubs do that, and I feel like some people are so Ten Hag out that they won't give him credit for things that actually I think he's done quite well. Hoyland just needed confidence. He's still not getting much service, but he's also making his own chances now. Yeah, and I wanted to get into that. I think in my 5 things we learned, I spoke about Hoyland, how good he is, but when you actually think about it, that Hoyland goal was, he created that chance, and the other one he did really well off a Garnacho shot. Hoyland makes goals for himself. He absolutely makes goals for himself as well. What's someone saying? Well done, Alice. I agree with you. Big up everybody in the chat. 129 likes. Let's get into the next story. Did I read that bit out? Yeah, so Dan Ashworth being basically blocked from blah, blah, blah at Newcastle. In terms of Dan Ashworth, apparently, and this doesn't surprise me, Newcastle officials are furious at the manner of Manchester United's approach for Dan Ashworth. Newcastle were not happy about United's approach for Dan Ashworth. I feel like Newcastle have known for 2 months United wanted Dan Ashworth, and were probably walking on eggshells about it, and Dan Ashworth played it down until he actually knew United were interested. It said that Ineos have today received an agreement in principle to sign Dan Ashworth from Newcastle to be the technical director of Manchester United. Now United will reach an agreement with Newcastle. So it's been said that United are set to reach an agreement with Newcastle soon. You've also got to remember Dan Ashworth has good connections with Brailsford, gets on with Brailsford as well, which has probably helped convince Dan Ashworth to come to United. He gets on with Brailsford. Apparently he's had good conversations with Blanc. Alex said, wouldn't mind Kambala getting more of a look in with our lack of centre-back options. Honestly, I'd rather Kambala play than Lindelof. Put Kambala at right back. Kambala has experience at right back. Put Delo at left back. I don't want to see Lindelof. And we won't get to see if he would have been any good at Newcastle. Not like the buzz around Brighton if he left. Yeah, some people are saying he's been bad at Newcastle. Within 18 months, Newcastle got back into the Champions League after being a relegation club before he came in. Yes, the Tonali one's a bit of a flop. Lewis Hall isn't really on him because the manager's not playing him. Livramento will be a good signing. Harvey Barnes will be a great signing. Bruno Guimaraes, that wasn't technically him, is a great signing. Sven Botman's been a fantastic signing. You've got to remember, if we're sitting here next year and United scrape 4th place and it's not been a very good season, there will be people turning on Omar Barada, turning on Dan Ashworth. But what people have got to realise is it's going to take at least 3 years to see the effect of what Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth will do. It's not. I mean, there should be improvement next year. We should see progress, but it's going to take time. Nice took time for people to see what's happening at Nice. It's going to take time. Dan Ashworth's not going to come in and things are going to be magically fixed. It's going to take multiple transfer windows, sales, a culture reset. It might take 2 or 3 seasons to see it. Just because if things aren't fixed right away, and I think people forget that it's a long-term thing as well. Harry Amas because of Shaw's injury. There's a rumor about it, but this kid's just turned 16. Like I get if you're old enough, you're good enough, you're old enough, whatever it is. But I think if Harry Amas was 19 and he was like Alvaro Fernandez, then they would take the risk. But I think because he's literally 16, he's so young that they won't. I don't know if they'll take the risk, especially with just the Premier League now. But he has been good. He has been called up to first team training. Maybe we'll see him in the cup game against Forest, but he's not even making the bench. I think Harry Amos is one to go on pre-season tour and maybe be called up to the squad next season. The same with Shea Lacey. I think they're just a bit young as well. It takes time. City didn't immediately win everything with their takeover and structural changes. Exactly. People got to realise it takes time. Continuing on, other information that came out on Dan Ashworth was from Miguel Delaney saying that United board member Blanc has led talks with Dan Ashworth, and apparently United and Ashworth reached an agreement in principle yesterday afternoon. It was also said by The Guardian that Manchester United made it clear that they are not prepared to pay anything near 20 million for Dan Ashworth and will endeavour to negotiate the figure down, which is expected. And Rob Dawson said it's increasingly likely that Manchester United will look to pay a lower amount of compensation for Dan Ashworth, with him serving at least some gardening leave as possible. So that is sort of the last, really, on the Dan Ashworth story. Essentially, it is Newcastle want 20 million. United and Newcastle will probably end up agreeing something around the 10 million mark, and I think Dan Ashworth will be a United player. I think that's really what it will be, what will happen. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see, but that sounds about right for me as well. Too many fans are short-sighted, unreasonable time expectations. Yeah, you've got to realise that actually, we've got to get through that short-term pain for the long-term game. It's a long-term project now, and it's frustrating when you don't see instant results, but we've got to be patient with the thing going on. I said this is action begun at United because Rob Dawson also included this in his report that Manchester United have started planning for the summer transfer window with Eric Ten Hag and John Murtough. It's highly unlikely that Dan Ashworth will be able to have influence over this window. He obviously includes this just after that report. I think this is Man United now briefing that they're going to plan for their summer without Dan Ashworth to try and negotiate and and make Newcastle think, do you know what I mean? They might wait. We might have to pay Dan Ashworth a year and a half not to work for United. I think it might be a game, this report, to try and get Newcastle to lower the fee they're asking for Dan Ashworth. I think this is United playing a little bit of psychology, a little bit of a negotiation game on Newcastle here as well. Apparently Roy Hodgson has stepped down. That doesn't surprise me. There's a genuine chance, and I hope they don't, but there's a genuine chance Crystal Palace could get relegated. I'm sure they won't, but with Luton being good, Crystal Palace or Everton could go down, and they're two big Premier League clubs. The only thing I can think of is if Everton get relegated, Branthwaite's going to be cheaper. If Crystal Palace get relegated, Elise is going to be cheaper. That's the only thing I can think of. But it's mad to think that Leicester got relegated last season. Southampton got relegated last season. They've been in the Prem for a while. Big teams do go up and down. No player other than James Ward-Prowse has played more outfield minutes than Bruno Fernandes since the 1st of February 2020 in the Premier League. And no player in world football has played more minutes than Bruno Fernandes in the last 4 years in all of football. No player has played more minutes than Bruno Fernandes in the last 4 years of football. That is mad in all competitions. Absolutely mad. The Newcastle CEO has come out and put out a statement. Newcastle put out a statement. Darren Eagles has said, "We are naturally disappointed that Dan Ashworth has chosen to leave. However, our exciting journey doesn't stop here, and the process of new sporting director will begin immediately." Newcastle United, breaking news coming out here. Newcastle United have announced that Dan Ashworth is leaving. I think that's confirmation the deal will be done. Newcastle CEO has now come out announcing that Dan Ashworth will leave Newcastle. So I think that's everything you need to know as well. People saying... People saying Newcastle confirmed Dan Ashworth has commenced the period of gardening leave. Yeah, Newcastle have now confirmed Dan Ashworth is leaving. Dinosaurs went extinct when Hodgson was the last standing. Honestly, Hodgson's been around for so long. But that's big news and a big update there on Dan Ashworth. Looks like that deal looks like it's essentially done, to be honest, doesn't it, as well? In terms of other things and other information I wanted to get into before I wrap up the live stream, I wanted to share some statistics and just some interesting things I saw on the realm of things online with you guys. This was some data on Garnacho's ball carrying this season. First for shot ending carries, third for shot creating carries, and fourth for most key pass ending carries. I think Garnacho, this isn't goals and assists, but his ability to pick up the ball from deeper areas and dribble over such large lengths and carry the ball so far, I think that's a really underrated aspect of what Garnacho brings, his carrying ability. And statistically wise, it's showing that Garnacho has been one of the best wingers in football this season, just because of his ability to carry the ball over such distances and make things happen. And he's honestly such a good ball progressor, so good at just dribbling and all of that as well. Newcastle confirmed Dan Ashworth will leave. That's more reports coming out. Newcastle put out a statement to say Dan Ashworth is leaving, people. I mean, they put out this statement 20 minutes ago while we were live, but just to confirm it to you guys, Newcastle put out their statement to say, you know, Dan Ashworth's leaving. Even when the final ball not coming off, Garnacho, his stamina and work rate's become so good. Yeah, one thing that's really improved about Garnacho is his all-round game, his stamina, his work rate, what he gives for the team. You could tell he gives 100%. So Newcastle have confirmed Dan Ashworth will leave the club. That is, I mean, we knew that was coming, we knew that was happening, but the confirmation is there, people. That is massive. I did want to talk about Onana in today's video. Someone said to me, Alice, would you sell Onana? And I said, you know what? There's 10 players. There's loads of players we need to sell. And there's a lot of players that we need to say, prove yourself next season, you're out. And we were talking about Omar Barada's 2-year rule, 2 years and you're out. For me, Lindelof, McTominay, Sancho, Anthony, they're players that 100% need to go this summer. Martial needs to go this summer. But players like Malacia, players like Mason Mount, players like Onana, they've got to prove themselves next season. And if they don't prove themselves next season, they'll be out. Obviously, Malacia and Mount have had injuries, but it's very much of, you know, you get 2 seasons, you're out. Malacia, we're going to give him a third just because he's been injured all season. That's sort of the way it is for me. I think we need to get the players that we know aren't good enough or don't have the right attitudes out. And then players like Mount and Onana, if they don't prove themselves next season, then I think that the Ineos regime should get them out as well. As I know a lot of people want Onana to go and want to sell Onana, and he's not been great for United. He's not been good at all. But there's just so many more areas that I'm bothered about, like centre-back, midfielder, right-winger, striker, then goalkeeper. We know there's a good keeper in Onana. He just hasn't been good for United. He either finds his form next season or we'll move him on. That's sort of the way that I'm looking at things as well. The mad thing is, when you look at United and you look at everything that's gone on, and why I'm feeling quite positive as a United fan is, I look at it and say, well, Ineos wanted Omar Barada. He resigned from the City group and joined United. Ineos wanted Ashworth. He's resigned and will now join United. For me, the fact that we've managed to get 2 leading figures from Manchester City and Newcastle to come to United is massive. That is absolutely massive, because I think these people a year ago would have said no to United. 2 years ago, Dan Ashworth did say no to United. The fact that they are willing to come and work for United now says to me, okay, there's intent and ambition being shown by Ineos. There's a project here, and the project here is a good one because they're attracting people from the top. That's what it says to me. If the people from the top of the club, when people from the top of football want to join United, resign from the very comfortable Saudi project of Newcastle, the Manchester City in their best of the era, leave those clubs and come to United and work under this Ineos project, they believe Ineos is serious. And that gives me reassurances, because the Glazers are still here. I'm saying, you know, Ineos are giving a lot of talk. Ineos are giving me an impression that they do want to achieve footballing success, that it's not about money. But I've said, we don't know what Ineos will be allowed to do because the Glazers are here. The Glazers are still here. And for me, the fact that Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada has come in says to me, the Glazers are going to have very little input. Even though they're still here, they're going to have very little input. And I feel that that is a positive for me. Any news on Luke Shaw's injury? No, but I think we'll get an update tonight or tomorrow. I assume that we will as well. Ashworth left every club and England better than how we found it. He seems genuine. Left West Brom better than how we found it. Left Brighton better than how we found it. Left England better than how we found it. Has left Newcastle better than how we found it. I'm really excited for Ashworth to come in. I think he's going to be a great appointment. We'll take time. We've got to remember it's a long-term project, but I'm a big fan of him as well. Guys, please do smash the likes. Please do subscribe down below if you're new. Big up everybody that's tuned into today's live show. I do think it's been a really, really good show. So do subscribe if you're new. Do hit the likes. I will be back tonight with a video or a live stream, depending on how much news comes out. See you guys tonight for a big video. Bye.